So here we are with my week 6 check-in now. Just a recap and some reflection on how week 6 has gone. It's been another fascinating week, really. Another week when I've been able to share with people about Jesus 6 times, 6 days, and some days more than once. Quick recap of how that went. The first day was talking to someone at the Maxwell Leadership event, and that was a little different. We encountered some believers there, and they were able to share some really encouraging things from their faith and from their church life. I got to speak to the driver on the bus that took me back to the parking lot at Kansas City Airport. Then I was in a Target store and got chatting to a lady that was clearly a believer, but ended up sharing a lot with me, like just lots of scriptures and encouragement. And then she let me pray for her about a nursing test that she was taking the next day. So that was pretty cool. On day 4, I got chatting to a guy. This was really interesting because he was not a believer, but he had heard similar things what I was sharing from someone else that it seems he'd also heard share out in the parking lot. So that was really interesting and encouraging to me that other people are out doing this kind of thing as well. And then a big deal was meeting a guy that I chatted to already once before over at Walmart, right on the early, I think in the first week, and was able to talk to him again. And it was just very evident to me how things had progressed in his life spiritually. So he let me pray with him again, and I'll talk a little bit more about that probably in a moment. And then just the last day was really interesting, how I got shunned by a presumably fellow believer. He said he was a believer. And then from that got to speak to, or pray for at least, someone that seemed to be deaf at the side of the road. So very varied again. And, what I like to do is to just pull out a highlight. And I think for this week, it was really a blend of 2 days, which had a very similar kind of awakening for me. I'm just going to share about briefly. And this was day 4 and day 5. So first of all, I was talking to this guy in the parking lot who said that he'd heard the gospel, and he'd heard about the love of Jesus from someone else that was intentionally trying to share that with him. And so now I was coming along and doing the same thing again. The scripture talks about sometimes there's this principle of one sows and then another waters, but in the end, it's God that gives the increase. And it really opened my eyes to the exciting prospect, that we play a small part on the top of what other believers are doing in different individuals' lives. And that was pretty cool. And kind of linked to that, I suppose, in some ways, was on day 5, when I got to speak to this young man at Walmart for the second time. I'd spoken to him in the first week, in week 1, and he remembered our conversation, definitely. As I started to share with him again and offered to pray for him again, it just really seemed like there was a bit of a connection, I must say. And then he said to me, at the end, he said, so where are you going now? I said, probably just going home. And it seemed like he was willing to linger and, talk more. And I said to him, look, we must catch up again sometime. And he seemed really encouraged by that. I told him that I'd been praying for him, and he seemed really, really grateful. So I'm excited about that. And the reason I mentioned that in kind of like a follow-on to the day before that, on day 4, is that on this occasion, I was also kind of watering a seed that had already been sown. This time, I was the one that sowed that seed. Now, I'm sure others have too. I just get that sense with him. But the fact is that I saw growth in his life. And that is so, so, so encouraging. So that's something that I really feel the Lord is highlighting to me again, is just this encouragement to me to be participating in the work and not being too stressed about like specific goals or results or outcomes, but just to participate and let him be the one that really is the one that gives increase, because he is the one that gives increase. So looking back, this is now 36 days, 6 weeks, 6 days a week, 36 days when I've been able to intentionally, actively engage people just out and about with some simple message, and very often a prayer as well, a simple message about Jesus, about the love of God, about the opportunity for new life, about eternity, about the resurrection of Christ. All kinds of themes come up in these conversations. But, again, it just really highlights to me that I've been living for a lot of years where I didn't have that intentionality and I wasn't activated to do this. And it's really, really, really made a difference. And I suppose on that theme, I'm just pondering a scripture, 2 Timothy 4, verse 5, where Paul, writing to Timothy, gave him a couple of exhortations, but then said, do the work of an evangelist and fulfill your ministry. And for me, and I'm sure it's true of a lot of us in many respects, even though I've never really seen evangelism as my main ministry, it's like participating in evangelism somehow motivates fulfillment of purpose in our lives. And certainly with the vision that I've been carrying to help motivate and mobilize believers into the harvest, really through community and small groups. But doing the work of evangelist, I am seeing is essential to fulfillment of these purposes. So that's definitely something I've been reflecting on. I think the other thing I've been reflecting on as well really is the why behind what I'm doing here. Now, clearly in my case, if you follow along with this and you've heard me talk from the beginning with the intro and about how this all came about, it's like the 156 challenge was a direct encounter kind of experience that I had with the Lord where he placed this upon me. So for me, it's like really it's an act of obedience. It's just an act of saying yes. So really, I could just answer the why by saying, well, because the Lord said so. But it's kind of deeper than that as well. And I've kind of just been reflecting on the why and remembering something that I'd pondered before, really, that I have two pieces to this why. The first one I would call the people piece. And I think over the last week, I've been feeling that this has been coming stronger and stronger on the inside of me as I look to share with people. And I think this builds on my experience from the previous week. I don't know if you got to see the week 5 check-in, but at week 5, I was over there in Florida with Heather and was just really impacted by the amount of damage that was done to those coastal properties by the hurricanes. And just the idea that the storms of life cause hurt and problems in people's lives and that we need to be able to minister into that. And that's often a way into sharing the gospel and deeper things of the Spirit. And so I think, last week I'd said that that's something I really want to major on. And I've definitely been bringing that much more into what I've been sharing with people this past week during week 6. But along with that, I've been feeling a growing sense of, I guess you'd call it compassion for people, right? People have got a lot of struggles and a lot of needs. And that's the people piece why. It's like, why do I do this? It's a little bit like in Matthew 9, we read about how Jesus looked out over the multitudes and he was moved with compassion for them because he said they were like sheep without a shepherd and they were harassed and distressed. And oh my goodness, does that describe our modern world? And so that people piece is definitely a part of the why. And I'm praying and asking the Lord to release more of that heart into me as I continue with this. The other part of the why I call the Jesus piece. And this is quite simply, Jesus went through a lot to purchase salvation and to open up a new creation for the whole of humanity. And it matters that a lot of people don't know about it, or if they know about it, they don't know about it enough to act on it. And so the Jesus piece is that I want to do this so that he gets more fruit and more results from what he invested into this new creation humanity on all of our behalf. And so just reflecting on the why again, and the why is really, really crucial. As it gets to this point, I'm not really feeling it, but it could get to the point where I need some perseverance here to keep going. Well, it's the why that really injects that energy and enthusiasm to keep going. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. So I suppose prayer needs is just to continue moving in this kind of way. I would still like to see more of the kind of prophetic and word of knowledge coming in. I see that more operating when I'm working in small groups and less so far in this outreach. I'm not stressed about that, but I am praying that it would increase. And of course, the scripture says we should desire earnestly those spiritual gifts, especially prophecy. So I think I'm well in line there in terms of my prayer request. Okay, that's my check-in for week 6, starting week 7 tomorrow with week 7, day 1. Keep looking out for those shorts, okay, as I share day by day my experience on the 1 5-6 challenge.